Welcome to the Jay Martin Show. My guest today is Paul Sun, the CEO of Eminent Gold. We talk about the flow of capital through the gold sector and when the junior explorers can expect to catch a bid. And of course, we touch on Paul's company. He's trying to find the next great gold deposit in Nevada. Here is Paul Sun. Enjoy.
This is Jay Martin.
Okay, here I am with Paul Sun, CEO of Eminent Gold. Great to have you back on the show, Paul. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
So the market's very different from the last time you and I spoke in studio. That was like 4 months ago or so. Sentiments changed massively. And I kid with a lot of the guests that come on. I'm like, pretty soon gold investors are going to have to stop complaining about the market, right? But, the cycle seems to be shaken out. As expected, we saw a run in the metal price. We've seen the best-in-class miners hit all-time highs, and that's now beginning to trickle down to the sort of mid-tier producers, some of the juniors. Maybe the unfunded developers are next, but, that's the cycle of capital as it moves through the sector. So you've been in the business, a very long time. How are you watching? What are you watching in today's gold market, Paul? What's catching your eye? What's getting your attention?
Yeah, I think obviously, as we talked, gold, I think, continues to be in a secular uptrend. We're at $3,400, nothing to complain about there for sure. All the seniors are producing, a ton of cash flow, and they're getting recognized for that, which is all good. But I don't think the geopolitical tensions are going away anytime soon, right? We're seeing this kind of newer tension happen in the Middle East. Ukraine conflict doesn't seem to be going away. Even before all that, economies, as you know, were debasing from the US dollar. All of those inputs are positive for the gold price. At the end of the day, we do think it's going higher. So that's a positive environment for us, obviously being a pure play gold explorer co. And yes, we do expect, anytime now, the market trickle down effects to happen, as you said, the intermediates to the juniors and then to the explorer cos. And I think we touched upon this at the last interview, in that there is still going to be the haves and haves nots. There's going to be the people that can get funded. They're going to be the people that have quality projects with good upside, positive jurisdictions, all of those sorts of things. So I think you are still going to stand out. I think it's a while before we get to that full froth situation where, it floats all boats. But I think we're around the corner for a very good market for quality explorer cos like ourselves.
Yeah, and that's that's the season that you want to be in, right? When you hit the frothy part of the market where a rising tide is lifting all boats, that's a massive red flag. And, investors think they look forward to that moment, but you shouldn't, right? It's not a positive sign when everybody's getting some love. Investing should be hard, right? And only good companies should be rewarded. That's how it should function. Let me ask you, because, you mentioned, I know you spent some time in Africa, working in Africa. We were just chatting quickly before I hit record. Your company's now based in Nevada, right? And I'm just curious how much of that. I had Thomas Kaplan on my show last week. He's a guy who's made money in very questionable jurisdictions over his career, Bolivia, few countries inside of Africa. And now he's 100% focused on America, right? He's up in Alaska. I just bought the Donlin gold mine, of course. You're a globetrotter, but right now you're US based. How much does jurisdiction factor into your decision-making with Eminent Gold today? Is it just the project looked good, or was it very intentional given geopolitical implications as you shared? I want to stay close to home. I want to stay in jurisdictions where I can trust governance and there's some level of predictability.
Yeah, I think, I have worked in Africa. Obviously, Dan, our technical team, he's had success in Ghana and in West Africa and in Mexico, and those are reasonably good jurisdictions. But nevertheless, from my standpoint, leading the company, we wanted to stay in a very safe, top jurisdiction. Dan is known as Mr. Nevada, so he is based in Reno, so he's on the ground there. So we're very opportunistic on, things that we see. We're not married to the fact that we have to stay in Nevada. However, there's no better jurisdiction, and it's also just serendipitous that the projects that we found have been very they're very exciting new opportunities. So the thing about Nevada is a lot of people say, oh, okay, maybe a lot of the gold has already been found, but really the mandate that we came and built the company around is fresh perspectives and new concepts. We didn't want to be, I don't want to disparage, say a retread, but we wanted to have, new discoveries, out of the box thinking. That's kind of really what factored into building the company. And obviously, Nevada is a top jurisdiction. So I know as a past banker and being in capital markets, certainly there's great projects and there's a lot of gold around the world. But if you're constantly fighting either a perception or a reality that you're just in a difficult jurisdiction, it's another thing to have to, get people over the line, right? So we've tried to mitigate, exploration at the end of the day is risky, but we've tried to mitigate the risk as best as possible with Eminent. So that's kind of, a long way of saying that's why we're staying in Nevada for now.
No, that makes sense. Let me ask you one more question on that, sure. Paul. You could build a thesis that says we can look at central bank gold buying over the last 3 years. A lot of countries, both like Eastern and Western aligned economies, have been stockpiling gold or at least diversifying their reserves. And they've been buying in very large quantities. And, recent surveys from the World Gold Council expect that trend to actually increase. There's a larger percentage of global central banks that are now buying gold and planning to buy more in 2025, 2026. Not every country is. Some aren't, but some have gold deposits inside their borders. And there could be a scenario where we get further down the path of just currency devaluation. If you're a weaker economy, you don't have the ability to inflate your currency much more without massive inflation. You may look at a different kind of printing press, and that's a producing gold mine inside your borders and say, you know what, I'll take that, right? And that's just, general concept. There's a higher risk of nationalization today than there was 5-10 years ago. Do you agree with that? Because there's certain countries where it is unfathomable or very unthinkable, and they're not going to be the first to set precedent, most importantly, right? Because as you know, these things aren't single events. Once one thing happens, it's usually precedent for more of that thing to happen.
Yeah. No, I think, there's always been, expropriation and you kind of work with the government and it's good until it's not good, until something goes wrong or, they feel like they're not getting, a big enough piece of the pie or whatever the case may be is, we're seeing that, very front and center with Barrick in Africa right now.
Sure. Yeah.
There's many examples like that. And I think just as things become more volatile geopolitically, everybody's going to work in their own, governments are going to work and operate in the best interest of their country. And at the end of the day, if you're, an expat working in that environment, even though it's great, it's, miners are big contributors to their GDP. They employ people, all those sorts of things. At the end of the day, there still seems to be, at least the risk that could happen. So, from our understanding, we haven't seen that yet. In the U.S., obviously, there's some interesting policies happening right now, but, at least the current administration seems to be very resource focused. So, at this point, we're not, concerned about that where we are.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys recently closed the financing. Kinross put $3 million into your company. Can you walk me through that process a little bit, Paul?
Sure.
The origin of the partnership and what they see in Eminent that convinced them to take such a large position in the company?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Kinross has been following us for a while. Getting back super quick to, companies in high-risk areas. Kinross used to be the poster child for high-risk jurisdictions, right? They had operations in Russia and all these places, Mauritania. And now they're taking the view that at least they want to diversify or offset some of that risk and be in safer jurisdictions. So kind of, enter companies like Eminent where they're, in Nevada. Their technical team is very thoughtful. They've been watching us for the last couple of years. Hot Springs Range project, our flagship, which started as a very early stage, some might even call it a science project. But they were intrigued. And every step of the way, as we de-risked it and moved it along and really showed or proved that it was an analog to the 50 million ounce Getchell trend, each step of the way, they were always looking for updates and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, as you know, Jay, the drill is kind of the truth teller, and that's kind of at the end of the day what tells people what you have or what you don't have. So when we put in the very first hole for the company, which is also the very first gold hole ever drilled on the other side of the Getchell trend, on the other side of where all those monster mines are run by Barrick and Newmont, when we got that first hole that showed significant gold and arsenic, on our very first hole, all throughout the hole, they basically said, we want to be involved. We want to be your strategic lead on this. And, so we had a great conversation with them. They said they would bring a technical committee and we would collaborate. But at the end of the day, we're still, the sole operators, we're the sole decision makers, but they've been great partners. And I think they see, like we do, that this is, really virgin exploration for gold territory, yet in such a very, populated place for gold production like Nevada. So that's kind of what brought them to the table. And so far they've been great partners.
So you're right. The drill is the ultimate truth teller. You guys have undergone a work program on the Hot Springs Range project. So walk us through your results, Paul.
Sure. So I think when we were talking, Jay, back in January, we had started our drill program, but we didn't have any results yet. So basically in February, we put out that first hole. It was like I said, there was intercepts all throughout. We'll give you some samples: 3.9 meters of 2.4 grams per ton. That included an 8 gram per ton sample. We're seeing a lot of arsenic, over 2,000 ppm of arsenic. And for those that don't know, arsenic is very traditionally found with Carlin style systems. So that area of Nevada, which we call the Getchell trend, is Carlin style mineralization. So you always want to see those pathfinder minerals like arsenic, and of course you want to see gold. So those were, we had hits like that, throughout the hole. I think, it was a 500 meter hole, and we've had, hits from, 75 meters all the way to 475 meters. So it was very good. And then we basically drilled 2 other holes, which we put out earlier today, and it's kind of more of the same thing. So kind of, got some good intercepts of gold and arsenic once again. And each time we drill, because, first of all, this is a blind target, meaning that there is cover, so you don't really see much outcropping at the surface. So we're just really trying to, basically build or continue to build on our geological model. Because as you know, you put one hole in and that's 1 point. You put, 2 holes in, you're kind of in 2D. You put another hole in. So you're basically trying to build on that model and use each result as a way to vector towards, further success. So we've done 3 holes to date. It's been quite exciting, and then we'll look to continue.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next for you guys right now? Because you have some cash in the bank. You got initial intelligence with this preliminary program, right? And this is like the process of you're beginning to answer the unanswered questions, right? That's the exploration company journey. So what's next for you guys from a news flow standpoint, Paul?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to have pretty good news flow. It should be, catalyst and news rich, balance of the year for us. So we're going to bring back the rig after doing further analysis with Kinross, great collaborators, and we're going to punch another hole in the Hot Springs. And then part of the work plan with Kinross is we've said that we're going to do 2 holes in Celts, which is our other project. Okay. And that's never been drilled before either. So that'll be, hopefully another similar story where, kind of Celts, brand new area, but analogous to, Silicon, which is now a 16 million ounce deposit. Again, most recent discovery out of Nevada, but, never thought before that, there was gold there. So So we'll look to do those 2 holes. So we're undergoing permitting. So yeah, so that's kind of, I guess a preview of some of the news flow that we'll have coming up.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So Kinross's investment, was it contingent on exploration in Celts as well as the flagship Hot Springs Range?
Yeah, I mean, I think we gave them a plan on what we wanted to do, and they didn't, suggest anything different. We wanted to try to move projects forward in parallel, like we are having success at Hot Springs, but we also don't want to forget about Celts because it is a very exciting project and it's gotten a lot of attention. So we don't want to, spend all our time at one place. So they were in agreement with that. They are, I think, invested predominantly for Hot Springs, but they very much, love the carry of Celts and are, almost equally as interested on what happens there.
So we have a lot of folks that are like newer to the mining sector, not new investors, but newer to this industry. And so could you, first of all, when Paul's explaining his drill results, my commodity university students know you pay attention to the grade, but also the width. When Paul said 3.9 meters at 3.9 grams per ton, 2.4 meters was the width, correct? Yeah. So, we're watching both numbers, Paul. Do you feel like you're beginning to receive validation at the Hot Springs project? And in terms of the consistency of results that you're generating right now, you've been in the game a long time. How does this stack up to previous companies you've worked at? You don't have to name names, but to your peers.
Yeah.
What could you share on that front?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. Because as you know, or as most know, it's often you don't find something in your first few holes. Sometimes you have to punch 100 holes before you kind of find something. The saying is you really drill for structure, and then you hope you find gold. But at the end of the day, you're looking for the structure or the control that basically creates that gold deposition. So as we drill each hole and we're identifying, which structures we're drilling for, that's building information. But in terms of the actual results themselves, I mean, we're ecstatic. Kinross is ecstatic because, again, it's a blind target. It's never been drilled in this area before. All 3 holes have shown gold, have shown arsenic. The other interesting thing that we like so far is that all the gold mineralization is kind of within like iron oxide. So what that means is, oxide generally can be, from a recovery perspective, is, you can use, simpler recovery techniques like cyanidation as opposed to like with sulfides, which technically or generally happen, below oxides. And then there's, a different kind of recovery process. So far, everything we've found has been oxide material, which is also great, because it's a lower cost recovery. Again, thinking down the line on, is this going to be a producing mine? And that's also gotten Kinross excited. So, it's only 3 holes, but so far, very exciting. And that all 3 have shown, good gold, good arsenic and oxide material. So that's, they say grade is king and oxide is queen. So we're happy that we have oxide here right now.
Yeah. Okay. And just provide a bit of context on the Celts deposit for me. I know we're going to learn more about it in the coming months here, but why are you excited about it, Paul?
Yeah, so Celts is our most recent acquisition. We got it towards the end of last year. It was brought to us by the same technical team that brought Anglo Ashanti, the silicon deposit, which I mentioned earlier. So, high level, silicon has grown from, 4 million ounces to 6 million ounces. The way it works, again, it's a new discovery model that people didn't think of, where there's not gold on surface. So people walked over it, looked, tried to sample for gold, didn't see any gold, and then just walked away. And then one of the, smart technical guys there that, again, being in Nevada, we know well, recognized that the silica cap or this rhyolite dome structure basically comes from depth, creates a boiling zone as it moves through the water table, making it an ideal gold deposition environment and also amenable for bulk mining, which again, from an economics perspective is what you want to see. So we've done some work. So it was a competitive situation. We acquired it. We own all three of our projects outright, I'll say, which means we can, operate on our own timeline. But as soon as we got it, Barrick staked all around us. And it's been, a lot of people are calling, asking us about that. The work that we've done so far, we've done induced polarization, or we did an IP study. And what we've confirmed so far is that the underlying structure is analogous to that of silicon, and the age of the rocks is exactly of that of silicon. So that's why it's exciting, because silicon is the most recent large-scale discovery coming out of Nevada, and it's the most recent geological model that, again, is new. And, you think mining's been around forever. Hasn't everything been thought of? And, the answer is no. There's always like new things, new concepts coming up. So yeah, we're super excited to punch a couple holes in that one.
Okay. I love it. And then just to bring back the, expected news flow dates for me, we're going to complete the work program on both celts and some more work on Hot Springs Range timeline that prospective shareholders can look forward to news flow, Paul.
Yeah, we're going to bring the rig back to Hot Springs in a few weeks. So then we'll drill. It'll be a 500-meter hole. So then we'll get assays, maybe a month or two after that. And then we're almost done permitting celts. Okay. And then we'll, bring the rig over there and punch a couple holes. So, I'd say there's going to be, every month there'll be, some kind of result hopefully coming out.
Yeah, lots to look forward to in 2025 then. Okay. Yeah. Love it, man. Love it. Great chatting with you, Paul. Thanks for coming back on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jay.